Something unprecedented is happening inside Reform UK, and it has sent shockwaves through the party, its supporters, and the wider political landscape. The party that vowed to be the champion of free speech, the defender of ordinary Britons, and the true alternative to the establishment, has just made a move that could destroy everything it stands for. A decision so astonishing, so self-sabotaging, that critics are calling it political suicide. This isn't a minor misstep or a misunderstanding. This is a full-blown crisis that could redefine the party's future. But what exactly happened? And why are Reform supporters reeling in disbelief? Let's break it down. Reform UK has always prided itself on being the party of free speech, on being a voice for the people ignored by the mainstream, and on challenging the establishment at every turn. Supporters believed they were voting for a party that would fight tooth and nail for ordinary Britons, a party that would not bow to the pressures of political correctness, social media censorship, or mainstream media narratives. But now the party has done the unthinkable. In a move that has stunned its own members, Reform UK announced that it would suspend councillors, not for corruption, not for misconduct, not for betraying public trust, but for sharing a post by Tommy Robinson on social media. Yes, you heard that correctly. Councillors could face suspension for engaging with someone who has been, for better or worse, one of the most influential voices in grassroots free speech activism in the UK. This isn't just controversial, it's a direct betrayal of the very principles the party was built on. For years, Reform UK has positioned itself as the antidote to Labour's authoritarian tendencies, a party that would protect its members and supporters from the same silencing tactics used by the mainstream. Labour silences dissent by labelling critics as far-right extremists. Big tech platforms censor ordinary citizens for voicing opinions that challenge the accepted narrative. And now Reform UK, the party that promised to be different, is doing the exact same thing to its own elected officials. By punishing councillors for sharing a single post, the party has signalled that it will no longer tolerate independent thought within its ranks. This is more than hypocrisy. It's political self-destruction. Supporters who once believed they were backing a party unafraid to speak. Uncomfortable truths are now questioning whether Reform UK can be trusted to uphold free speech at all. Free speech is not about protecting only the convenient, polite, or widely accepted opinions. Its true value lies in protecting the controversial, the uncomfortable, and even the unpopular. When a political party begins to dictate which ideas are acceptable and which are punishable, it has abandoned the principle entirely. Tommy Robinson has been vilified by the establishment for years, and whether one agrees with him or not is beside the point. What matters is that people have the right to engage with his ideas, to discuss them, and to decide for themselves. Reform UK's decision to suspend councillors over a social media post is a stark warning that the party may no longer defend this fundamental right. Orwell's words from 1984 come to mind. In a society where thought itself is punished, speaking the truth becomes a revolutionary act. Today, it is not crime, corruption, or betrayal of public duty that endangers a political career. It is a single post shared online. This isn't just a warning to Reform UK supporters, it's a signal to the entire country. The party that was supposed to stand as a bulwark against censorship, against establishment control, against the silencing of ordinary voices, is now implementing the same tactics it once promised to fight. Every supporter watching this unfold can see the danger. Once a party starts punishing its own for dissenting opinions, there is no limit to the compromise that follows. Today it is Tommy Robinson. Tomorrow it could be anyone who dares question party leadership, challenge a popular narrative, or express a viewpoint deemed too controversial. Reform UK's credibility is on the line, and the choices it makes now will define whether it survives as a true alternative or collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. The fallout from Reform. UK's decision has been immediate and intense. Party members and supporters have taken to social media to voice their outrage, describing the move as betrayal, cowardice, and political suicide. Councillors who once felt proud to represent Reform UK now find themselves caught in a no-win situation, uphold their commitment to free speech and risk suspension, or comply with a ruling that undermines everything the party claims to stand for. This tension has created a fracture within the party's ranks, a divide between leadership and grassroots members that could prove impossible to heal. The shockwaves are not limited to Reform's own base. Political analysts across the country are watching in disbelief, noting that a party built on challenging the establishment is now enforcing the very censorship and thought control it once condemned. Such contradictions are fatal for political credibility. Every supporter who witnesses this sees the hypocrisy laid bare. The party that promised to fight for free expression has now become a mirror image of the institutions it opposed, applying authoritarian measures to its own members in the name of conformity. At the heart of this storm is the debate over Tommy Robinson, a figure who has long polarised the nation. For years, he has been demonised in mainstream media and political discourse, often portrayed as beyond the pale, too controversial to be tolerated in polite conversation. Reform UK, positioning itself as the champion of free speech, should have been the natural ally for those who believe in open dialogue, even with uncomfortable figures. Instead, by targeting councillors for sharing his posts, the party has alienated a substantial segment of its base, many of whom see engagement with Robinson's ideas as a legitimate form of political discussion. This is not about endorsing every statement Robinson has made. It is about protecting the principle that citizens and elected officials alike must be free to discuss and share ideas without fear of reprisal. Reform UK's failure to uphold this principle raises fundamental questions about the party's direction, its priorities, and its ability to remain a credible force in British politics. The decision has sparked comparisons to Labour and Conservative tactics, highlighting an ironic and disturbing alignment. Labour has long been accused of silencing dissent by labelling critics as extremists, while Conservative leadership occasionally enforces party discipline in ways that stifle debate. Reform UK supporters, however, expected a new model. A party that would act differently, that would empower members rather than punish them for independent thought. The suspension policy, announced in the wake of a Tommy Robinson post, has shattered that expectation. Critics argue that Reform is now using the same tools of suppression it once railed against, employing threats of punishment to enforce ideological conformity. For ordinary voters, this is a red flag. A party that cannot protect free expression within its own ranks is unlikely to defend it on a national stage. Political movements survive on credibility, trust, and clarity of purpose. By acting contrary to its stated mission, Reform UK risks losing all three in one shocking, headline-grabbing moment. The implications extend beyond internal party politics. Media outlets, already critical of Reform UK's rise, are seizing on this controversy as evidence that the party cannot deliver on its promises. Headlines describe mutiny within the ranks, self-sabotage, and hypocrisy exposed, painting a narrative that will be difficult to overcome. For voters seeking a sole alternative to the status quo, this sends a chilling message. Even the parties that claim to stand for freedom, fairness, and transparency are vulnerable to the same authoritarian instincts they criticise. Furthermore, opponents are quick to exploit the situation, framing Reform UK as unreliable, inconsistent, and willing to punish its own supporters to appease a broader public or avoid controversy. This narrative threatens to undo the momentum the party has built over years of campaigning, undermining the very credibility that brought supporters to its cause in the first place. Perhaps the most dangerous consequence is the erosion of trust among grassroots supporters. Politics is built on relationships between leaders and the people who give them legitimacy, through votes, activism, and public support. By suspending councillors for sharing a post, Reform UK is sending a clear signal that loyalty to leadership outweighs commitment to principle. This kind of top-down enforcement creates fear, resentment, and disillusionment, which are far more corrosive to a political movement than any external attack. When the base begins to question the integrity of the party, enthusiasm wanes and engagement drops. Campaigns lose momentum. Members hesitate to speak out, fearing reprisal. The result is a slow, almost invisible decay of influence, a political death by 1,000 cuts, all traced back to one shocking decision that seems so small on the surface, but carries consequences that could define Reform UK's future for years to come. The consequences of Reform UK's decision to suspend councillors over a Tommy Robinson post extend far beyond internal party dynamics. The public reaction has been swift, vocal, and damning. Ordinary voters, who once saw Reform as a bold alternative to the tired, predictable politics of Labour and the Conservatives, are now questioning the party's integrity and courage. Social media platforms are flooded with criticism, as supporters accuse the leadership of hypocrisy and cowardice, pointing out that a party claiming to defend free speech has now actively restricted it within its own ranks. The controversy has sparked debates across the country about what it truly means to defend liberty and whether a party can claim to champion free expression if it punishes members for exercising that very right. This debate is not theoretical. It strikes at the core of Reform UK's identity, calling into question the principles that attracted its supporters in the first place. At the heart of the backlash is the perception of betrayal. Reform UK has built its reputation as a party willing to challenge the establishment, stand up against censorship, and protect ordinary people from the overreach of political correctness. Its supporters have invested time, energy, and trust in a movement that promised to uphold these values. Now the party's leadership has made a move that seems directly opposed to everything it claims to represent. By targeting councillors for sharing a post, Reform UK has alienated the very people who have been most loyal and most instrumental in building its presence across the country. This is not just a public relations issue, it is a crisis of identity. Supporters are left asking, if the party cannot protect freedom of expression within its own ranks, how can it possibly defend the rights of ordinary citizens on a national level? The irony of the situation is striking. Reform UK rose to prominence by criticising Labour for silencing dissent and condemning the mainstream media for punishing those who spoke uncomfortable truths. Yet in this moment, the party has adopted the same strategies it once decried. The suspension policy mirrors the authoritarian tactics it claimed to oppose, enforcing conformity and punishing independent thought. This reversal undermines the credibility of the party and raises serious questions about its leadership. Political observers are noting that such actions are self-defeating. When a party that claims to be different begins acting exactly like the establishment it opposed, it risks losing its unique appeal entirely. Reform UK's bold messaging, which once inspired hope and energised grassroots activism, now rings hollow for many who believed in the movement's authenticity. The ramifications extend to the broader political landscape. Opposing parties are capitalising on Reform UK's misstep, using it as evidence that the party is unreliable, inconsistent, and willing to betray its own supporters to avoid controversy or criticism. Headlines across major media outlets describe the situation as party in turmoil, internal rebellion, and freedom of speech under threat, amplifying the perception of instability. For potential voters seeking an alternative to Labour and Conservative dominance, this paints a stark picture. Reform UK may not be the steadfast, principled alternative they had hoped for. The narrative of a party willing to silence its own councillors to avoid conflict challenges the very foundation of its promise as a defender of ordinary citizens and free expression, threatening to reverse years of momentum. Perhaps the most troubling consequence is the long-term impact on party morale and cohesion. Political movements rely not only on public support, but also on the confidence and unity of their members. By enforcing this controversial suspension policy, Reform UK risks creating fear and resentment within its own ranks. Councillors and grassroots activists may feel that loyalty to leadership is valued more highly than commitment to principle, eroding trust and motivation. This type of internal conflict can stifle innovation, discourage independent thinking, and ultimately weaken the party's ability to mobilise supporters in future campaigns. Once disillusionment spreads, it becomes difficult to reverse, leaving the party vulnerable to internal fragmentation and long-term decline. Reform UK's current crisis is also a cautionary tale for political movements everywhere. Principles cannot be selective. When a party proclaims itself a defender of free speech, it cannot pick and choose which voices deserve protection. By punishing councillors for sharing a single post, Reform UK has signalled that it prioritises control over conviction, conformity over courage, and image over integrity. This is a dangerous precedent, one that not only alienates supporters but also undermines the credibility of the party in the eyes of the wider public. The question now is whether Reform UK will recognise the magnitude of its error, reverse course, and reaffirm its commitment to the principles that once defined it, or whether it will continue down a path of self-destruction that could irreparably damage its reputation and future.